Hello and welcome to all of you. Good evening. You are here with us on hashtag Generations event today to talk about nurturing trust, a media and information literacy imperative. Again, a warm welcome to all of you joining with us on several platforms. And hashtag Generation is organizing this event to mark the Global Media and Information Literacy Week, falling from 24th to 31st October. And this is one of the events to mark the week. And we have an expert here to talk about trust. So, we're here to talk about trust and how literacy gets in the way, especially when it comes to media and information. So, moving along our topic, nurturing trust, the media and information literacy imperative, let me introduce our expert speaker for the day, Mr. Shihar Anis. Shihar Anis is the head of training at Center for Investigative Reporting, and he's an expert in data and investigative journalism, and is experienced for over 24 years in the field of journalism and is a senior trainer. Shihar Anis is also a consultant editor at Economy Next, and he has also been the former Reuters correspondent for Sri Lanka and Maldives. He has won 2 prestigious awards for SOPA for his investigative reporting for Reuters. And like I said, he holds over 24 years of experience in the field. A warm welcome to you, Mr. Shihar. Please lead the session. We have an hour ahead of us to talk about media literacy.
Thank you.
So let's begin by talking about what media literacy is. The floor is yours.
Uh, Thank you, Manisha. Yeah, so I'm going to give you a quick example on what media literacy means, right? Uh, so if somebody what Sri Lankan economic crisis means, you know, will have many perception, many opinion on that, right? So what media literacy can do is uh, you can if they know the real facts, if they know the real information, if they know how to verify things, if they know how to select only the true and accurate information, this means most of the people will have almost a kind of perception on the economic crisis. So that's a example I want to tell you about what it means, right? So media literacy is all about you have access to media, you can analyze the media information, you can verify them, and you can act depending on what you have. Now this is kind of allow you to do some critical thinking. It's all about, now we always say like media is the gatekeeper, and you provide information for people to make decisions, but it doesn't it's not really the same. It's not really the really what we see practically. Now with the the social media especially, if you see one information, if you see a piece of information, you will see it's kind of not only the true and accurate information, but you will see a lot of information involved in that, or related to that, right? So people might mostly confused about who tell the truth, right? So this shows media illiteracy in a country like Sri Lanka. So in a nutshell, media literacy is access the real, truthful, and accurate information, analyze it, and then based on what you have, you can react, you can take your decision. Simply, that's media literacy.
From what's from a host of information, basically. I'm not sure if I'm correct or wrong, but I think that's what you also said. So let's talk
That's
about
right.
the global landscape, Shihar. How where does the global media literacy stand, and in comparison, where does Sri Lanka stand? What can we tell about the global media literacy?
Yeah. So global media literacy with the invention of the social media, they have gone a long way. But I would say in 2016, U.S. election, I'm giving you some examples so that people can really understand. Now that really kind of with the Facebook and other social media, the information given the social media, the people or the voters did not have any type of verify, right? So that's in which means it's not 100% accurate or not 100% everywhere are the same. Media literacy is improving in developed countries, so they don't basically there are messages in developed countries saying don't ask taking without verifying, right? So they if you uh, earlier when you see media institution, you have journalists, you have writers, you have to edit stories, and then but now in developed countries, mostly in in the west, there is another element coming into the news coverage, that is verifiers or verification people, right? So basically they verify each and every information. So this is the improved media literacy countries, right? So it's not only the journalists, it's not only the editors, it's not only the publishers. It also involving verifying any information. Any information should be verified. There are verification tools developed for verifying, and uh, they will go. Uh, uh, they will go with they will go with this, uh, officials and official. This means like unlike in Sri Lanka, uh, they just have their verification tools. Uh, Basically,
Shihar, your line is a little unclear. Right, until Shihar joins again, let's reiterate our topic for today. It's nurturing trust, uh, a media and information literacy imperative. This is organized by Hashtag Generation on behalf of the Global Media and Information Literacy Week. And this is part of the programs, one of the programs that is held in English language. I'm sure there's a string of other events to commemorate this event as well. So we've been talking about media literacy in Sri Lanka and how, in the global context, media literacy in the news industry, particularly, how it is practiced as a professional practice as well. So, in comparison, we were about to talk about how Sri Lanka differs from the global context, and especially how the news media industry could benefit or change or adapt based on the global trends as well. So media literacy of verification, not only for the citizens but also for media industry as well as journalists and for publishers, is an essential part of improving literacy or maintaining literacy. Let's wait for Mr. Shihar to rejoin and continue our discussion along these lines. Meanwhile, if you have any questions or points to discuss, please drop in your relevant platforms so we can take it up for discussion. Hi, Shihar, you're back on.
Sorry. I think something went wrong in the connection. Uh,
Right. So you were talking about the global media literacy landscape
yeah,
and how the news industry, particularly, is using verification as a practice.
that's right. So we don't. I mean, Sri Lanka does not use Sri Lanka media institution. Do not use any verifications. In their publications. Uh, so I want to actually kind of tell you a good example in the recent past. I mean, I think it's 3 or 4 days back. There was information about this, to the state tourism minister, sending a letter to one of the main newspapers saying that Sri Lanka is getting $18 billion worth investment, Disneyland in Hambantota, and that news was published. I think then they realized that it was not verified, right, and it was not true. So this is some, one of the examples that we can say, like, the news, the journalists, and as well as the media going behind some, I would say, sensational and kind of, breaking news. But when you break news without verifying, mostly, you will have to kind of, uh, you will not be able to defend when you realize that it's not true. So there are ample example, we can give you in Sri Lankan media. But when you compare this to the West, or to advanced countries, or even sometimes, like, countries like Philippines, and even India, right? uh, they have in this inculcated this, among the media, among journalists mind, that credibility is the most important thing for a journalist or for a media. Without credibility, you can't go to the public won't trust you. Now that is not here in Sri Lanka, right? So even if you fabricated story without your knowledge, right? Sometimes, we talk, in journalist language, we say a plant means, like, a media can be used to go with a fabricated story planned by, some agenda setters or the politicians, or corporate leaders. Now it's amply happening in Sri Lanka, whereas in other countries, they will try to kind of verify things before they go online, or on for publication. But it's not happening in Sri Lanka to a level where people will trust the media. So that's the situation in Sri Lanka.
So as you pointed out, using the recent example as well, media in Sri Lanka is increasingly losing its credibility and trust public. People have to, look at a news item for a second time to see if it's true or false, although we even now rely on mainstream news or mainstream print media and even electronic media to look for news. But as you said, as a profession, it's not practiced in Sri Lanka compared to the West and even other countries in the region. Right. So we determine that we are in a so much lower compared to the global context. But this issue of trust is not only limited to media right now. I mean, especially in Sri Lanka, it's almost a cross-cutting issue, and it's running across all fields. People have no faith in public authorities, public institutions, government institutions. It's almost like a pervasive issue, especially in Sri Lanka, and it's felt across the board. So what's the reason for this, and what do we do about this? It's not only about media literacy, but it's also about something more. So let's talk about that.
Sure. I think first and foremost thing here is, the trust and the credibility comes when, uh, when a person says something, when it becomes true, and they see that whatever, these public authorities or media say is true, then the trust comes, right? Then, people will believe what this media and the public authorities say, and they will have confidence. But it has not been there, right? For instance, now, a classic example is economic crisis. When media pointed out that there is a looming economic crisis, and it will be a real crisis where we will not have foreign exchange. Our inflation will go up, and there are a lot of examples given in the media, but public authorities, they denied it, right? Until the last minute, they denied there is a crisis. I still remember on October 1st, uh, the then central bank governor came up with a framework, for 6 month framework, and said there will be $26.5 billion inflows within the 6 months, including exports, right? uh, and I still remember the way media published that framework, as well as they gave more space for the central bank official to say that this story will be true. But nobody questioned how that will come in a situation where Sri Lanka was going to default, right? uh, then and Sri Lanka going for a sovereign default, that story was long denied. And the media that reported were ridiculed, right? So when that happens, when this kind of incidents happen, like where obviously that something is going to happen, and media is not covering them, and uh, the officials are denying them, then of course people won't believe, right? Now I'm not sure whether you all know that Sri Lanka's uh, you know uh, the websites, websites are the most popular news in Sri Lanka, mainly the gossip sites, because uh, people don't trust the other media, right? So that has led the public and the readers and the audience to go for this some unauthorized, or the websites which are not actually accurately reporting, but still they believe them, because there are some of the elements of truth, right, in those media, whereas or those website, whereas the conventional media and the mainstream media have failed to do their job as media. Uh, and and uh, we have seen like a trend where with the media also fighting with the social media and websites, right, in breaking news. That's fine, the competition is fine, but what we do through this competition, I have seen, is we actually don't give space for critical thinking for the public, right? We don't ask questions, or we don't uh, explain the details of an incident, or of an issue, or of a topic. We don't explain it to the public where they can critically think whether uh, it's true or not true, right? We just go with what these officials say, what the ministers say, what the opposition say. uh, uh, and for many of our media institutions, uh, the objective reporting is, they feel like, you know once they get a government comment, they should get only a opposition comment or a related comment, and then go. So uh, the the incident or the information they report is one thing, but the truth is something else. That truth will come with the time, and then public will realize that the media has not reported the truth, right? The classic example is the economic crisis and Sri Lanka sovereign default, right? Those are some of the recent example I can tell you. So likewise, there has been a number of incidents that have happened where, even when media try to point out that this is going to happen, the authorities will come and say, no, it won't happen. And then from the media side, they also kind of, they will go with those comments, but they will not critically, make people thinking about, what's likely to happen, or the real situation of of that topic. So that all have contributed to this eroded credibility and confidence. So people don't basically trust media as well as the public authorities.
Yeah, so the public cannot trust mainstream media, so they have to rely on, say, gossip sites, which is even more worse. And there's no foolproof system to, acquire accurate information as well, because there's only a load of misinformation or false information around. Uh, and we also still have people, believing whatever is put out on paper or put out on screen. And there's also this lack of the public duty, from the point of view of the, say, consumer of information. Also uh, there's this gap in consuming information. So what has influenced this decline of media and information technology literacy, and what can we do about improving public critical thinking or rational thinking in order to address this issue? It's not only an issue of the media, but it's also an issue of the government, or, say, whoever is in authority. So to bind all of this together, we need a public hand, or the citizen engagement, which is about rational thinking or critical thinking. Where do we start? How do we improve this?
Okay, I think, as I told you earlier, we have failed to come up with the issue based coverage in our media. We only go behind, I'm not blaming anybody here, I'm not blaming any media here, but generally Sri Lankan media, we go after what happened. We don't go behind, why it happened, right? Now that's the critical question we should ask as journalists, as media. uh, Even as social media can help with that, on on things like why it happened, right? For instance, if there is an accident, we just report, and just we go with what's happening, what's going to happen next. And maybe it's like, if it is a accident involved with a VIP's relative or VIP, then we cover more. So basically, we have created this sensational news coverage, right? Which will not help for people, uh, to take their decision after critically thinking. What we need is to go, cover to more to do more on why things are happening, right? We need to critically critically discuss about policies. We need to critically argue about the budgets, right? How the money is collected and how the money is invested, or spent, right? We have never done it. If we had media like that, right, we wouldn't have invested in all these white elephant projects, right? People would have shouted against it, people would have protested, right? Now people, aware about, they are aware about these projects, right? uh, you know which we call like white elephant projects, and we also say, we can't pay our debts, right? So we have borrowed so much of money without any return on investments, right? So what we did was, like, the media covered only the incident based information, whereas we failed to cover why it happened, and the consequence of what happened, right? Now these are two critical area where we can make people to think critically and make decisions, right? And this actually translate into the political thinking. I think we might discuss it later, where you basically mislead the people with just showing something else, whereas the truth, right? Uh, this, uh, for instance, the economic crisis, this had been there, since the end of the war, right? But what policymakers did was they postponed it through borrowing, heavily uh, from rest of the world, and you know uh, for popularity, they invested in some projects that won't give you any return on investment. Ultimately, people had to pay, the the people had to pay the money. Right now, we are facing it, right? Now, if this information about, so for instance, like, if we had covered all about these projects, right? The invested projects, how much of money we borrowed, at what cost, how much of money we have to pay, and will the project give the same amount of return or more than that, uh, you know things would have been much different, right? But we never do that. Even with the RTI, the Right to Information Act, I find the this why element is not coming. So that is the most important thing for the public, right? To make them think critically. The why element on anything, anything is important, right? In every coverage, we as journalists should go behind the why, rather than, you know uh, just covering the incident and, giving some sensational news. And then, you should also allow people to think, okay, because of this, what's going to happen next? What will be the impact on my life, on my community, on my country, on my village, right? These are some of the critical questions this media should answer, or give some space for the public to discuss in through the media, or even using the social media. This is not happening in Sri Lanka. So we always, this is the main reason why we also see a lot of diversion, right? uh, Say, if there is something happening, and the media is going behind that, and if it is bit uneasy or inconvenient for a political leader, we have seen, you will see a better news coming in later, a diversion, right? And then people forget that news, and they focus on the latest one. So this is all because of, we don't critically analyze this why part. So I think, to make people critically think, we should allow the media to cover the why part, why this is happening, and then also to tell that people, okay, because of this, what is the impact, right? So people will critically think and analyze the information, and then they also themselves will try to kind of find out how it's going to have an impact, and then they will critically think about the reports they read or they see, and then they will come to their own conclusion on what to do. So the decision making will be based on the critical thinking. So that's what we have to do, to going forward, to make people to think critically.
So in one sense, in order to influence the public to critically think, there has to be enough information for the public, provided by the end of the media as well. And I think here what we are also referring to is the lack of investigative reporting or lack of investigative writing on the media as well. Because as you said, as you rightly pointed out, we only have clickbait journalism, not really critical or engaging journalism, which reveal a lot of things. And these decisions, I mean, these half baked or lack of informed decisions also lead to people making false decisions when it comes to their economic decisions or political decisions, or their decisions when it comes to dealing with the minorities or their communities, etc. So media literacy in one way also influences political decisions and all of the other areas as well. So how does I mean, you did talk about how media literacy, of course, influences political literacy as well, but I want to bring it to a bigger discussion as well. What impact does media and information have on political literacy, especially because as a country we are in this situation today. We need to talk about political
Yes.
literacy.
I think, Manisha, the best example is what we see now, right? We brought, people brought a government, people voted a government with two-third majority, thinking that, they are the best. And then, you know, the people themselves realized that they were not going to get their aspirations fulfilled, right? So there is something wrong, in their decision making, right? Now this is one of the best examples I can tell you, right? From this, the government was chose by the public, from the public, and uh, the public themselves, right, came to the road. I'm not saying that 100% of these people who voted for this government came to the road street and they wanted to oust them, but the majority of the people, right? So this is all because of, you come up with some promises, you come up with some of the statements, you go with some of this clickbait journalism, you go with some policies that is not sustainable, to the country, right? uh, Now, I'm not blaming these political leaders for, that for that, because they are there to win elections, right? Now, people should critically think. I mean, this is where the media also has failed in making them to critically think. Now, they actually can't think, right? Now, uh, we usually we say, like, if you can basically, satisfy your voters uh, for the 3 months before the election, then you can win, right? You can spend the money, you can go to their houses, talk to them nicely, and create a perception that you are the leader, with all these, human qualities, affections, and then you can win. That's the perception there for a better political leader in Sri Lanka. Whereas, they are struggling to go for better policies, right? They can't do the policy making, they can't do the law making, they can't come up with a policy uh, to maintain the economy. They can't do any policies on, how to how to minimize the loss making in public institutions. They can't do any policy making on elders, right? If you see, if you go to the society, if you go to a market or a hospital or education institution or public authority, you'll always see there are some issues, right? And these all issues, right now, we basically blame these political authorities, and we basically blame, each public officials. But I would say there is an issue with the policies, right? Now, we people don't know that, the policies can make things better. Now, for instance, I can tell you, in countries like UK, right? uh, they have you know up to date, implementation of law and order. People are really scared of their law and order. Why? They are implementing it. There is no favor to anybody in that law and order. There is no favor to anybody in tax collection, right? Everybody knows that they have to pay their taxes. Everybody know that if they go beyond 60 miles per hour, they will be there will be a penalty for them, and their points in the license will be reduced. And they basically follow that rule, right? Now, here in Sri Lanka, we don't do that. Why? There is an issue, there is a policy issue, right? more than implementation, there's a policy issue. You have this, we always go for, blame these political authorities for favorism and things like that. But what I'm saying is there is a policy issue in terms of not implementing things properly, right? If 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 i if you ask me, what we can do for this, I would always say, you know uh, push, through media, for better policies, for better implementation of policies, right? And policies that cannot be manipulated by leaders, right? There should be policies that cannot be compromised by people who have authorities, who have powers, right? Now these are something we need to do. Now these are the policies they should talk during the elections, but whereas our people are used to talk about what the government is going to give them, right? The subsidies, transfer payment, and uh, people are, the voters are always seen as beggars, right? So but these politicians come up with statements saying that I will give A, B, C, D, and then people vote for them. Or politician use the situation, like in the Easter bombing, like security, you are threatened, right? We have a terrorist issue, which is true. But these are the policy wise, right? These are the policy issues that they should, any government should uh, address. Whereas our politicians use those issues as the key, the promises in the elections, right? Nobody, I mean, until recently, nobody is talking about our tax revenue, right? Everybody was happily living without paying taxes, right? Why? Because they feel like, I'm not blaming people, they feel like paying taxes is a burden because the government should give everything, right? Now there is no government that has money, right? The money is from the public. So for you, for anybody to receive a better service, they should have better tax revenues, right? Tax collections. That's, that thinking is not there among our people, right? So people always, these politicians, even public authorities, they always manipulate this idea about, it's the government should give everything. No, it's not, right? So this is where we have failed. This is where we fail to, as journalists, as media, we fail to make people to think that it's the people who have to pay for everything. It's not the government, right? And that could come only through better policy making, better leaders, right? So for better leaders, we need to kind of create a situation where people can elect better leaders. I don't think it has even come to a level where 30 to 40% of our people are aware about how to identify a better leader and how to select a better leader. So it's a Herculean task to kind of educate the public on these things. One is, our media is not ready for that, right? uh, they always go with some sensationalized stories, you know you know for media also, it's a business, right? They are doing a business, they are not doing a public service here, right? Unlike in some other countries where they have dedicated public service media stations or media institutions. uh, we don't do that, right? But of course, if you do that, if you stick to the principles of ethical principles, still you can do that. But even that is not there in Sri Lanka. So because all of this, you know you we uh, media are partly responsible for misleading the voters, misleading the public to elect people who should not be in the parliament, who should not be formulating policies for the public, right? And that's we have seen, right? There are people who don't have O levels in the parliament. There are people who don't have even uh, learned studied beyond grade 7, right? Now how can they make policies? How can they make policies on education? How can they make policies on the health, right? So these are some of the critical questions we should ask ourselves, right? Now this uh, though we ask these questions, we cannot convince the public uh, to come up with uh, proper selections during the elections, right? You know, the voters always go behind, I would say, sentiment or emotions rather than policies, right? Now we, as media, we need to do more and more work to educate them through media literacy, through allowing them to critically think, allowing them to see, okay, if you see something, if how they can uh, make a better decision in an election, how they can make a better decision in economically, in buying something, right? So media has to go to that level to explain them, which is a long way. I mean, I would be saying I'm kind of I'm living in a theoretical or dream world if I to do that in Sri Lanka.
Waste. Yeah, so it's a two-way street, like you said, and we're talking about nurturing trust, a media and information literacy imperative. And we've been talking about how political literacy, economic literacy, and people's decisions about how to, go about in day-to-day life as well is influenced by information and media literacy. And Shihar has been talking about how in Sri Lanka, officers are more in trouble if they actually abide by law and order, and how the government institutions and political institutions are all biased in a certain manner, and how the public also has to be literate, and how the media has to in other in it has a role to play in providing accurate information, to provide information that is critical as well. So we need to also talk about how particularly in Sri Lanka, we are living a history of uh, media freedom and political freedom, human rights even gets violated because of this lack of information and media literacy. We are currently living a history as such. So uh, let's talk a bit about that as well. How does human rights, how does freedom of speech also gets influenced by the lack of media literacy and information literacy, and what can we as public and as civil society members as well uh, take a role or play a part in playing a remedial part.
Okay, I think I have a simple answer that, Manisha. The answer is like, how many people know our rights? How many people know what's our right in a school? What's our right in a uh, you know in an office, when what's our right in a public office, right? uh, People don't know. People, uh, for instance, like, if you take a school, uh, there are there are rights that parents don't know, right? And quite often I have seen these rights are violated, right? uh, and you know the issue with Sri Lanka is that they are scared to come out. They are scared to express. Right? We uh, are a society where we have been brought up by our parents, our teachers, by uh, saying that "Onna billa enava," like something like the demon is coming, right? Devil is coming. So we we are scared to express ourselves, right? We are scared to come out. Yes, we have this natural mentality of this lack of expressing ourselves, right? So this has to be broken, right? Now for it's not easy to do that. So I think uh, basically we need to make people aware about their rights, right? And we need to see people, or maybe this people in civil societies, civil society organizations, or you know uh, professionals going to courts against these, right? Making some landmark cases, right? They should come out and see, and set benchmark. This is the right, this is the human right here, this is the correct thing here, this is what our law says, right? Nobody knows the complete system of all these human rights, and the freedom they have, right? uh, we I mean uh, since the end of the war we have seen a lot of court cases, and we learn a lot of things, that what are our rights, right? uh, which is quite good. But many of the people, I would say, like 70 to 80% of the people, they don't know how to react when their freedom of speech, human rights, or political rights, or economic rights are violated, and they don't know what they are for them, right? This something have to be tackled by all these professionals and local civil societies, uh, through educating the public, plus through going to the courts, and setting up some benchmark cases, so that people understand, okay, this is our rights. If this is breached, we can go to the courts. Those are some, it should be done by trial and error basis, and then people also will learn what's the reality of these, the freedom of speech, human rights, political rights, and economic rights, right? So that could be done by these the professionals, and the civil society organization, and the media, right? um, I think that there is an improvement in informing the public on this, but not to a level that we want, right? Now, for instance, in India, if a bus conductor does not give 25 cents the balance, they will go to the court. Whereas our people, even if the conductor does not give the balance 20 rupees, they are scared to talk, right? Whereas even after the right of the people is breached, we don't talk, right? We don't talk because they think that others will uh, what others will think about them, right? That needs to be tackled, uh, and partly also because of our education system also kind of not giving much support to kind of people to talk freely. um, we basically kind of we are still in kind of we are living in a ancient society in terms of these rights. So the best thing is uh, to make people aware of their rights, where they can go when the rights are breached, and we need to see action rather than it's only about complaints. So that has to happen, uh, to as the next step to improve the rights, what you said, freedom of speech, human rights, political rights, and economic rights. To improve them, uh, we need to go beyond what we see now.
So there's a gap of awareness as well that has to be addressed in order to meet these. Yes, so when we talking about nurturing trust, media and information literacy imperative, and we are closing in on our hour as well. But to wrap up, let's also talk about now. We also Sri Lanka is a country that has a history of entering into conflict, even communal conflict based on differences of religion, say race, ethnicity, or even language. And this is also, I think, a result or an offshoot of the lack of literacy or understanding when it comes to uh, basic literacy. Also, people are not when people are misinformed or do not have enough information as to make enough or informed decisions about their neighbors, about their communities, or about their fellow citizens. What do we do about this gap as well? And as civil society organizations, where do we come in, and how do we, as a whole, as separate entities, contribute towards improving media literacy, critical thinking, and also public rational thinking?
Um, I think the best way, given the situation in Sri Lanka, the best way is to uh, we say that media is the voice to voiceless, uh, which I would say yes, it's happening, but no, in a way like media has their own agenda, right? Each media has their own agenda. I'm not going to blame for that. So they work on their agenda. So sometimes this is why we don't see. I'm using this minority in the sense of not the ethical ethnical or religious minority, but minority within the majority. Let's say, for instance, if everybody uh, you know is everybody is healthy, and there are a group of unhealthy people, the unhealthy group is minority, right? So in that context, I'm saying we don't much concern about these minorities, right? Of course, ethnical as well as religious minority as well, right? So there should be some sort of a attempt for give them to voice. Now you said about uh, there is you know when there are news items like on minorities, people basically kind of react, right? uh, the the low level of media and information literacy, is one of the reasons for the breakdown of the trust about other religion, other ethnicity, even people within your own society, right? So there, I think uh, uh, one is media has failed to report ethically correct, right? And I'm sorry to say that being a trainer for a long time, I have seen uh, the ethics in Sri Lankan media has not been even 20 to 30% of what it should be, right? Um, so it's still there. I mean, if the media can ethically and objectively report information, I think most of these issues can be handled, but it's not, right? It's not happening because of the ownership of media and the professionalism of journalists, right? So uh, these are some of the things that we can think of addressing. But more than that, I think ethics in media reporting should be given more priority and importance, um, given that media is also a profession where anybody can venture into, right? uh, I would always say, like, Sri Lanka has two profession that you don't need even ordinary level uh, examination, which are politics and media, right? A person can come to a media institution, start writing, and become a journalist, and then same in electronic media. So there should be some minimum standard for a person to enter into journalism. That's one thing. And then we should improve this uh, media ethical journalism, in Sri Lankan media institutions, so that it has it needs to be uh, uh, in their blood, right? Now there is sometimes, mostly there, people get scot free with just saying, a correction if they have reported something wrong. uh, but it should be dealt with in a different way, to make sure that the the rights of the people are not violated through the reporting, not only minorities but also the majority, right? So there should be some strong ethical guideline for media on this. And I think this is where the civil societies and the policymakers can come into this in a great level, uh, uh, in ensuring that uh, ethics is followed in reporting, media reporting.
Thank you, Shihar. Uh, so we've engaged in a quite critical discussion ourselves about how media could improve, about room for improvement in order to raise media and information literacy, and hopefully in say even 5 years' time, when we mark the Global Media and Information Literacy Day in Sri Lanka, we would have better examples to talk about. Hopefully. So thank you, Shihar, for your time. Thank you for joining with hashtag for this event. And let's wind up for the day if we don't have any more questions.
Thank you,
Harshada,
Manisha. Yeah, thank you, Manisha, for hosting this, and thank you for hashtag inviting for inviting me. If you have any question, I'm ready to answer, respond.
I don't think we have questions coming from the audience. In that case, I think we can wind up. Hashtag over to you. Thank you.